Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the GIIS Alumni webinar, How to Get into US Universities. I'm your host, Seema Kaushik. It is a pleasure to see so many of you joining this webinar. Many of you are currently in grades 9, 10, or 11, and soon you also will be in your decisive years, and when you will go through a similar process of university applications. So this is an important first step for all of you, and I'm so glad you have chosen to take it on time. Each year, hundreds of students pass out of GIS with flying colors and go on to pursue higher education. Many get into universities of their choice and also offers from multiple universities in more than one country. As a career counselor at Smart Campus, I have helped many students with their university applications and processes. In this webinar, we will speak to 4 such alumni of the year 2021: Tushar Goyal, Khushi Bhardwaj, Karan Narula, and Anbalat, the toppers of our IB diploma program with 45 points. They got into universities in the United States for undergraduate courses of their choice and have taken the time to share their journey with their juniors to help them understand the admission process. Thank you everyone for joining in this webinar. So before we begin, here are some house rules for the webinar. For specific questions, students can post their questions to the Q&A section in the Zoom app. At the end of the session, we will take questions from this section and answer you live. So let's begin the webinar. I would now like to request each of our alumni to briefly introduce themselves with their academic and non-academic achievements, standardized test scores, university details, and the major they will be pursuing at the university. So let's start from Tushar. Welcome to the session, Tushar.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tushar Goyal. Thank you for coming. I'll be heading to UC Berkeley for a double degree in electrical engineering and comp science and business. Both of them will be a bachelor's in science. I got a 45 in IB and a 1560 out of 1600 in the SAT. Feel free to connect or contact me via my LinkedIn. My main extracurriculars was the summer program at Stanford University on artificial intelligence, and my own company. I had started up a company called Magnet. My honors and awards have been listed below. A lot of them are Olympiads and awards.
Thanks, Tushar. Good evening, everyone. I'm Khushi, and I'll be heading to Georgia Tech. I got a 45 in IB, and most of my honors and awards and extracurriculars are listed on the slide. If you have any specific questions or clarifications, feel free to email me on the email address that's given on the bottom of the slide. Over to Karan.
Hi everyone, my name is Karan Narula. I also got a IB 45. I'm heading to UC San Diego for a degree in cognitive sciences with a specialization in machine learning and neural computation. It's a big one. You can see my honors and awards on the screen, and please reach out on my email ID below. It's kind of empty right now. Over to you, Anbu.
Thanks, Karan. Hey everyone, I'm Anbu. I applied to UCLA for physics and I was admitted there. If you have any questions, you can drop me an email over on my email address there. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, this whole thing feels a little less scary, but it's important to know that everything we say here, none of it is really like fact, as in, especially with US universities, things are pretty gray when it comes to how you get in and how you don't get in. All of this stuff is our experiences and things we've encountered along the way that we found helpful. So they'll probably be helpful for you too, but don't expect it to be the be all and all way to get in or something like that. Next slide, please. So if you're anything like me, this whole process can feel a little grueling or tedious at times, but it's important that you don't stress yourself out too much and you don't overthink it either. So hopefully this webinar can help a little with bringing down all of those feelings. Next slide, please. Especially when it comes to profile building and trying to put together everything that makes you into a single application. Clearly that's not easy or even totally possible, but we want to get as far as possible. So when it comes to building a profile and choosing, say, we'll start with extracurriculars. When you're choosing extracurriculars, there's a lot of questions about how you want to pick them and what you want to do. And if you're in IB2 or 12th grade, and you feel like you don't have a lot of strong extracurriculars, in my opinion, you don't have to panic too much, because especially in US universities, the good thing is that you don't need to have a lot of specific extracurriculars that you chose specifically for your college application over 2 years, something like that. Instead, you can do stuff that you can take a look at yourself and like pick out stuff that you like doing on your own time. In my case, I like writing, and I do a lot of writing on my own time. So I use that as one of my primary extracurriculars. I actually had only 4 major extracurriculars. The rest were like hobbies and side stuff that I did. And even those 4 that you saw on the slide previously, were all stuff that I just happened to do because I like doing. Teaching was something I picked up in school. So don't stress yourself too much about picking up stuff specifically for college. Another good thing, sorry, not yet done with that slide. Another good thing about picking stuff that you like is that it helps with the essay, the extracurricular essay. When you get to that, it's easier to reflect on stuff that you do rather than stressing yourself about stuff you don't like to do and then trying to fill a certain kind of quota with like established stuff. You don't have to do that. Next slide. And now all the while I've been saying this, you might think, well, what if the stuff I like is not exactly completely relevant to the major I'm doing? Is that a bad thing? And here we come to a kind of slippery area, because on one hand, yes, it is nice if your extracurriculars support your major and like this idea that you're really driven to do what you want to do. But at the same time, especially in the US, it's not entirely necessary. In my case, I actually didn't have I had almost no extracurriculars pointing that were directly related to physics. I do love physics, but I just didn't have extracurriculars that were directly related to that. Instead, I had animation and writing and stuff like that. They weren't directly related, but they did help show a different part of me, which I think is a good thing too. However, if you do have extracurriculars that are related to your major, then build off of that. Next slide. So when you're doing stuff like this and it's not directly related to your major, what you can do is see if your extracurriculars come together to put some kind of a defining idea about you. It doesn't have to be super specific, but some kind of an idea is nice to have. It definitely doesn't hurt. In my case, it was that I like making stuff. I like creating things and expression. So that was my thing. And I delved into that a little bit more in my essays and other parts of my application. So you can sort of connect these things together, and it doesn't have to be as intimidating as it initially seems. Next, Tushar is going to talk about standardized testing and academics. So over to him.
All right, thank you, Anbu. Let's talk a bit about the academics and standardized testing. We'll obviously have our school exams, and most universities will take our scores from grade 9 to 11. Keep in mind that you have to perform your best in every test. So if you are at a low grade, make sure you keep on improving, have a good positive curve. And if you're already at the top, make sure you maintain that consistency. Something to look out for when considering your academics is to open up something called a common data set. Most universities, if not all, have a common data set with statistics about which kind of GPA do they expect. So you should try to maintain your GPA within that range, or at least above that range. I'm sure a few of you may be confused about what GPA is. It's the grade point average, and you can calculate that using CALPHO. And ultimately, do your best, guys. Make sure you keep moving forward. Now, there is one point I would like to emphasize on. Within your application, there will be a spot for you to put additional information. And during your research, you will come across the tip that use that additional information box to highlight any difficult circumstances that may have had an impact on your academics. Use this box very, very wisely because, yes, that is an excellent way to use the box to implement to implement that. However, you don't want to be seen as you're cribbing about one or two bad tests. So only use it if you have a genuine reason, and so don't make any silly excuses per se. If it's one or two bad test scores, don't worry about it. Don't freak out. It's perfectly fine. Everyone has that one or two bad test scores. But yes, if there is a genuine reason that impact your academics, use that then. Moving on to the SAT, you may have heard about the SAT a lot, and some of you may have already attempted it. So the SAT has multiple attempts, so make use of those. You can write it 2 to 3 times, keep improving your score. If you get in the first go, congratulations. I started attempting the SAT from in grade 11 from December. You can start from October as well. By starting then, you get about 2 to 3 attempts by the time you have to apply. I personally use the Princeton book for concepts and tricks. So whether it be revising English rules or revising on your math, Princeton is a great way to go. To practice questions, you should use the College Board book because it provides authentic tests, and Khan Academy because it provides an automated test scheme. So it'll shoot questions to you which you have made mistakes on before. Ultimately, I would recommend practicing consistency because one thing I noticed during my SAT was my brain is not as active on the final question as it was on the first question. So approach every question with a solid mind and a fresh mind. So you definitely want to practice consistency and stamina. Khushi, could you emphasize a bit more on the ACT?
Thanks, Tushar. So the ACT is another standardized test, just like the SAT. It's out of 36 and consists of mainly 4 sections: maths, that's with calculator, English, reading, and science. I would recommend starting from October or maximum December of your IBR 1. Keep it to 2 attempts only. That would be my recommendation. And your second attempt can be in Feb of your IBR 1. The best way to decide whether to give the SAT or ACT is to take a diagnostic test in both to figure out which one you're more comfortable with. Two most important resources that I used when giving the ACT was firstly the official ACT book, which comes with the authentic past papers. So these are practice tests that you can do in a timely setting. The second one was the online ACT prep. This is again official, and this would allow you to practice on your weak points and address any um, questions that you have in specific sections. Over to
Khushi,
Karan.
I just want to add on, Khushi, if you are unable to decide between the SAT and ACT, feel free to take both if you have the time and if you have the rigor. Take both, see which one you get a better score on and submit those for the college.
Yep, agree with that.
Karan, would you like to take over now?
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Thanks, Tushar. Just wanted to tell our audience that they can post their questions in the Q&A box and we will take them at the end. Thank you so much. Over to you, Karan. Yeah.
thanks, ma'am. So deciding your major. So this is one of the most daunting processes of the entire higher education scheme. So to go about, my recommendation would be to understand what you're interested in. So for me, it was clear that I was interested in technology and the entire tech field as a whole. So I narrowed it down to computer science or something around that area. The entire process is very intimidating. I can understand that. So, what I can suggest to people who are in ninth, 10th grade right now, participate in as many activities as possible so you get a variety of experiences. This allows you to figure out what you're good at, what you're interested in, and what you kind of see yourself doing for the next, basically, possibly the entirety of your life. Um, After you understand what you are interested in, research about it, understand what are the kind of jobs in that field, understand what are the kind of career paths, what are the education requires to become good in that field. And a last recommendation would be to figure it out as soon as possible so that you can move on to deciding which colleges you want to go to. A point to note for the US in particular it's very open and it's very free. You can go in as an undeclared student and try out a variety of different classes to figure out what you're interested in if you aren't sure by the time you're applying. Moreover, if you decide to try something out and you feel that you're not enjoying it as much as you thought you would, you can always change majors. US again is extremely flexible on that, which makes it a great place to go for your secondary education. Next slide, please. Okay, college lists. This is once again one of the most long-lasting process in the college application process. Tushar will go through a timeline of it and when you should probably start working on every individual aspect of it. But just on how to make the entire college list. So how I did it and how a lot of my friends did it was to make a primary list. This involved taking about 25 to 30 colleges. You can take this from rankings about the specific major you want to apply to. Look at the general ranking of the college, look at the location, look at how community is there, and make that list. Then you can expand on the list by adding stuff like the SAT score ranges, the academic expectations, the ranking for your specific major, as well as in general, because just the major may give you a very false um, perception of how good the university really is. The acceptance rates, the cost of attendance, and then you can categorize them on the basis of whether they're safeties, targets, or reaches. So this concept of safety, target, and reaches is basically in reference to how your academic profile matches with the general profile of a student at that university, which is the common data set Tushar was talking about. Um, if you're well above the common data set, that would probably be a safety school. If it exactly matches, it'll be a target. And if you're just reaching that academic profile, then it's probably going to be a read school. So after you make your primary list, you should probably decide to take somewhere between 10 to 15 colleges out of that list. It really depends on how many countries you're applying to and how many universities you apply in each country. Next slide, please. So this is a list of my universities that I decided to apply for. Of course, there are a lot of mistakes in this. I miscategorized a lot of schools. Stuff that I called a safety ended up really not being a safety. And next slide, please. Yeah, this was my final college list. So I have I have 11 colleges here. Um, and each of these were kind of balanced across each specter. I did 3 reaches, 4 safeties, 3 targets, and 1 hard reach. So yeah, next slide, please. The next part about your entire college listing process is to decide which is your dream college, which one would you be most happy going to. So to decide this, you basically have to figure out whether this school has a good academic reputation, again, specifically for your major. Do you meet its academic expectations? How closely are your academic profiles aligned? What are the kind of resources it's offering you from an academic perspective as well as an extra and co-curricular perspective? Is it in a location you would enjoy living in for 4 years? um, because again, this is, I say 4 years because that's usually the duration of an undergraduate degree, but it's likely that you will pursue some sort of career in the US after you finish your degree. So try to see long-term prospects of staying in that country, in that state, sorry. Does the college give you a stepping stone to achieve your goals? Does it have a good reputation in the career market? Does it get you good jobs? Does it have a good network of alumni? Does it give you the connections you need to become successful in that field? Do you vibe with the college or the location of that country or of the college? Is Do you feel like the people there or the students there are similar to you in their interests, in their academic rigor, in their general perception about how to go about this thing? And lastly, and I say this lastly because usually a lot of these these high ranking colleges like the Ivies give you scholarship, merit aid, need based aid, etc. Is it affordable for you and your family? Tushar, would you like to share your process of deciding on UC Berkeley?
Yeah, sure. So I firstly thought about my interests, which were physics and business. Unconventional, but that was me. That is me. and I found out about UC Berkeley and how it has a double degree program between electrical engineering, com science, and business. So therefore, I felt that, okay, this is exactly what I wanted. This is my interest. And I went on to understand UC Berkeley's vibe, as you said, Karan, very nicely put. By vibe, I mean the kind of environment that is there. So I saw, okay, it was quite entrepreneurial. They are very much involved in technology since it's located in Silicon Valley. And they have plenty of support to become an entrepreneur after graduating. Therefore, I felt that yes, UC Berkeley is a great place to go for me. So, yep, that's my experience.
Yeah, so that's a similar experience for me and a lot of students who end up going to the US. Places like California, Atlanta are tech hubs, and they're kind of attractive for you to settle in for a long time, and they give you a lot of opportunities. So, again, for me, San Diego was the same reason. It's near Silicon Valley, and it'll give me the opportunities I need to become successful in my career. Next slide, please. Things to keep in mind. So, this is specifically in reference to acceptance rates. So can we go back to my college list, please? Yeah. So let's talk about UIUC, for example. It has a very appealing acceptance rate of 61.5%. And I thought that would be an easy college to get into. And I labeled it as a safety. Unfortunately, that was very misguided. UIUC does have a high acceptance rate, but there are many factors that need to be accounted for here. Firstly, this high acceptance rate is usually for in-state students, which are students who reside in Illinois. Second of all, I applied for their most comparative major. Computer science is uh, a very comparative major in not just UIUC, but in most universities across the United States, especially for undergraduate degrees. So my acceptance rate was nowhere near 61.5%. In fact, none of the colleges that I've labeled as safeties were really safeties. There's a lot of factors that go into deciding what makes a college and safety, and that would require a lot more explanation. So I'd say you need to check for what kind of how comparative your particular major is, and what are the kind of diversity quotas that that school has. Next slide. Yeah. Uh, Lastly, letters of recommendation. So, letters of recommendation again become a very important part of your application. They kind of demonstrate what kind of student you are to the university. Different universities may request different types of letters of recommendation. MIT, for example, needs one letter of recommendation to come from a social science teacher and the other to come from a STEM teacher. This basically demonstrates to the Office of Admissions the kind of student you are in different environments, because social sciences and sciences will obviously have a very different style of learning and a different type of content. So they usually request these different teachers to give a letter of recommendation to give a very overall view of what kind of student you are. The next thing would be to take it from teachers that you've interacted with and have a good connection with. What this basically means is don't go to a teacher that you just attend the class for and don't have any outside interactions with. This should be a teacher that you have worked with on maybe a project, or you go regularly to get your doubts cleared, or you just generally have some sort of connection with. These teachers will have the best idea of what kind of student you are, and it's unlikely that they will give a recommendation that will not be correct. So definitely try and go for teachers that you feel know you well. And the last thing is try to make and maintain a good impression. If you know early on that there's a teacher who you will probably need to ask for a letter of recommendation, try to be cordial with them. Try to do well in their class so they know that they're interested in your class and that you do well in their class. So that's a good general idea of what kind of letter of recommendation, how you should go about getting letters of recommendation. Next slide, please. Okay, so the application rounds. This is once again quite a complicated process for the US universities, but I'll try to give a general idea of what it is. So there are two main plans that you can go about for US universities. There are non-restrictive application plans and restrictive application plans. Non-restrictive application plans could include regular decision, which is basically that you do these applications and submit it around December to January. Rolling admissions are basically that universities open their registration process and you apply, and within a certain set period of time, they reply to you. Early action is when you apply before the actual regular decision deadline, and you get a decision before the regular decision deadline. Um, these are generally all the same. Rolling admission may have the advantage where you could apply to a university. I can give an example. Arizona State University has rolling admissions. So you can apply to ASU earlier and then apply to all colleges which are better than ASU if you get in. So then that takes off some colleges that you don't need to apply for. The next type of action application plan is the restrictive plans. This is either the restrictive early action, which is written as restrictive early here, or the early decision. Restrictive early is basically when you apply to a school and receive a decision early, and this may restrict you from applying to ED schools, early decision schools, early application schools, or other REA schools. You have the same timeline to confirm this college. Early decision is kind of a commitment. You are obligated to go to this university if you get in. Um, you no doubt it should only be one university that you do early decision for, and the general recommendation to decide an early decision college is your dream university if it offers an early decision plan. Next slide, please. Oh, and yeah, so the advantages of doing early versus regular are quite clearly visible in this chart. For some colleges, there is a definite advantage to applying early. You do have higher acceptance rates, but once again, it's just a higher acceptance rate, and also you're in a more competitive pool because it's likely that these students are very bent on going to this school. So keep that in mind as well. Over to you, Khushi.
Thanks, Karan. So this slide basically summarizes the Thanks, Karan. So this slide basically summarizes the most common platforms where you do submit your applications. The common application is the most common one, which covers most universities in the US. Coalition is another one. University of California, the UC system is especially made for all the UC campuses. And there are other universities which have their own application portal. Like there's MIT, U of Texas has its own, University of Pittsburgh, etc. Basically, these are the same things. You mostly have to just fill in your academics, your essays, and it's kind of the same procedure with either platform. Next slide, please. So I'll just be generally talking about the Common App essay now. The Common App essay is essentially the most important essay when it comes to universities that accept the Common Application. What are characteristics or attributes of a great Common App essay? Firstly, they are deeply personal. This essay is often used to see if the admissions officer is able to connect with you as an individual. So making it deeply personal is the most important thing that you should aim for. Secondly, avoid cliche topics. These include, but are not limited to, immigrant journeys, I got bad grades then I improved, sports injuries, etc. It's not that they make bad essays, it's just that they might end up blending you with the crowd instead of making you stand out. The third thing is, make sure your language is perfect. That means no grammatical or spelling errors, no long paragraphs, and try to have a distinct writing style. At the end, it could all depend on how well you can tell stories. Keep in mind that you can change your Common App essay for different universities. So if you do get the time and think that you want to change a couple of things for a specific university, then by all means go ahead. The best way to start brainstorming for your Common App essay is to make a list of life-changing moments. Maybe moments where your perspective on certain things changed, or the biggest challenge that you faced. Make sure you're picking a theme where you get the opportunity to delve into your feelings. Make sure that you communicate the way you think about situations, problems, and how you make decisions. Once you're set on a particular topic, select the prompt that fits best. After that, it's just draft, get feedback, revise, and repeat. Moving on to college specific essays. These are also known as supplemental essays. The most common and important ones are the why this college and why this major essay. For these essays, I recommend making a table. On one side, write the admitted student profile of that university. You could think about the points that Karan mentioned in the right fit. This includes the values, attributes, characteristics that students of that particular university have. You can also include some unique program offerings that are specific to that university. On the other column of the table, write your core values, things that you really care about, your main interests, and your extracurricular activities. After that, it's all about connecting these two. So, these linkages that you make will be the basis of the essay that you draft. Just as an example, for Georgia Tech, one of the most important attributes that they look in for students is their curiosity and a general desire to understand how the world works. Curiosity was also one of my core values. So I made sure that I highlight this particular aspect about myself in my supplemental essays. So it's just, as I said, about connecting the dots, how you suit the university and how the university suits you. Some points to note here are: make sure your research is thorough. I cannot stress how important it is not to mess up on this. Secondly, make sure each of your supplemental essays touches upon a different and unique aspect of your personality and perspective. They are giving you an opportunity to write 3, 4, or whatever essays so they can know different things about you. So avoid repetition. Thirdly, be ready to recycle your essays for multiple universities because you are going to end up doing that. So keep that in mind when you're drafting your essays. That'll be all from my side. Over to Tushar.
Thank you, Kushi. That was nicely said. So let's talk about the University of California application and their essays. This is slightly different, although some of the information may be repeated. So for the UC essays, they will give you 8 prompts, and you will notice that they are very similar to Common App prompts, the one that Kushi talked about. So you can reuse your Common App essay, shorten it down, and then put it as one of your UC essays as well. So that's a good tip to follow. Out of these 8 prompts, you'll be selecting 4 prompts. And I would recommend you select those prompts that paint different parts of your personality. So an analogy would be that one essay describes your front, one essay describes your right, back, and left. So in that sense, they should get a good idea of who you are within those 4 essays. And while selecting these essays, also think of the prompts that are relevant to your department and course. Now, on to the brainstorming part. In addition to what Khushi said, you can always talk to your parents. They know you far better than you know yourself. So talk to your parents, talk about your hobbies. One particular example is I want to write about my biggest talent in one of my essays, and I was not sure what exactly to write about. But when I talked to my dad, he told me about solving Rubik's cubes. Initially, that didn't seem like a great idea to me because it comes easy to me. However, it turned out that it would actually make a really good essay because I was crazy about Rubik's cubes, and so it did turn out to work, obviously, because I got admitted. But yeah, so that was an example of how my dad helped me select an essay topics. Talk to your parents when brainstorming on essays. While writing essays, you want to try to open up 3 different websites with sample essays. Read a sample for each prompt, get the vibe of the essay and the language that is being used. Some are straightforward, some are more in depth, some have deep stories, and some are very crisp, and while some are very descriptive. So in that sense, you want to get an idea of what the essay is going to be like. One good tip would be that UC Berkeley, like the UC application itself, allows you to fit in 20 extracurriculars. So whatever extracurriculars don't fit into your extracurricular section, you put them into your essays. That's a good way to include them as well. This is my personal opinion. This may differ from person to person, but I would suggest not to ask too many people to read and give feedback on your essays. It dilutes your own personal voice. The admission officers know who's speaking when they're reading an essay. So I would suggest ask one experienced and wise person. Maybe it can be Seema ma'am, your parents, or anyone who's experienced with the college process, to find out potential interpretations. Maybe what you wrote was not what you meant, and the loopholes that pop up. And ask your English teacher, or you could refer to Grammarly if that helps for language. Right, so I'll just give you a quick run through of what I wrote. These are the 8 prompts for the UC application for my batch at least. On leadership, I wrote about my student startup. On my greatest talent or skill, as I mentioned, I wrote about Rubik's Cubes. On a significant educational opportunity, I wrote about the summer program I attended at Stanford. And for the academic subject that inspires me, I wrote about physics because, well, I love physics. Physics is great, guys. And I would just want to point out there is the 8th prompt, which is very open and very subjective. So you can write about pretty much anything you like, anything that's great about you. So use this essay if you have a really, really, really unique experience. The moment the admission officer sees that you're writing this particular prompt, they are expecting something super unique. So use it if you have a super unique experience. But if you do not, try to fit in your experience into one of the 7 prompts. Moving on, I'm going to talk a bit about interviews and video essays. Now, unlike the UK, US interviews are super chill. So don't freak out if you get a request, for those who are overexcited and for those who are extremely shy. Instead, calm down, thank the interviewer for the opportunity, and keep in mind that you have the right to decline the interviews, but don't do that. It's an opportunity for you to expand on your application. Interviews generally result in a short essay from the interviewer's side about what they felt about you as a student, whether you'll fit in, and any other similar criteria. Do not do a background search on your interview. I think that's the first prompt that we guys get. We want to search upon our interview. Do not do that. And dress well, but not too well. So, just wear a simple shirt for your interview. Now, in the content of your interview, it's an opportunity to talk about things that are already not on your application, because the admission officer will see what's on your application, and then he will see what the interviewer wrote. And it's also an opportunity to learn more about the university itself. The typical start is, tell me a bit more about yourself. You can go online and search on how to answer these questions. It's a very typical question. And from there, they'll pull up impromptu questions about your interests, hobbies, background. So let's say if I talk about how I've been in Singapore for 14 years, they talked about how my cultural experience has been. And if I talk about I like to solve Rubik's cubes, they'll talk about what interests me in Rubik's cubes. And they will keep going on like that. Now, this is a very important point. At the end of your questions, at the end of the interviewers' questions, your questions need to begin. Do not say you don't have any questions for the interview about the university. It shows a lack of interest. So make sure that you have questions prepared beforehand. At the end of your interview, send them an email, thank them for the time, and reiterate the course you applied for and why you're a good fit in 1 or 2 lines. Video essays are pretty similar. It's just a few questions that have been typed out instead of spoken to you, and you record your answers as a video and send to them. That's pretty much it. Now, this is something quite intimidating when we talk about deadlines. Yes, we have deadlines. So this is a plan for you guys to stay on track. Grade 9 to 10, start doing meaningful activities that you plan to commit to for a long time. Universities like commitment, as was mentioned before, and begin assembling your portfolio. The summer after grade 10, plan activities, do online courses, as I had went to Stanford for a summer course. So you can do similar things as well. Once you enter IB, start thinking about unis, your passions, and what careers are there. And guys, get LinkedIn. Like, you have Instagram, yes, but also get LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a more professional way to look for extracurricular activities and see what the kids in the US are doing. And you could also find great opportunities via LinkedIn. Uh, then you go on to attempt your first SAT, ACT exam in October or December. And during the March break, after your, I think, cyclic tests or semesters, I'm not too sure, in the March break, start shortlisting unis, as Karan said. Finalize your unis by the summer break and begin brainstorming on what your essays are going to be about. Open an account so you can go through what the components are. This is the extracurricular components. This is where you write your personal information. These are the essays. These are the essay prompts. So you have a good familiarity by the time you submit your application. And then comes grade 12. Yes, it's a bit more tiring in grade 12 because there's more work. So you want to ask your teachers for letters of recommendation early on. They are busy, they have a lot of work, and they have no obligation to write a recommendation letters. So make sure you approach them early on when they're not busy, and they can write a recommendation letters for you like that. They also get enough time to think about you as a student, so a better recommendation letter pops up. Then comes September in grade 12. You want to finish your Common App essay and start working on your supplemental essays and spend the month revising your Common App and your supplemental essay. Now it's October 4th week. I hope your early application is ready, your REA application, your early decision application, either one. I hope it's ready, submit it, and start your UC application because you only have 30 more days left. So November 1st is your early application deadline. So for example, if you're applying to Stanford, the deadline is November 1st for the restrictive early application. And then comes November 30th, UC deadline. And in December, you want to start working on other colleges for regular decision. You want to try to revise your Common App essay. As Khushi said, you can change it around a bit and improve it because you have practiced writing essays over the time. And grind your supplemental essays, write as many as you want or as many as you think that are needed. January 5th is the regular application deadline. This can vary. Some are January 10th, some are 15th, but mostly by January 5th, most colleges close their application portal. Then go on from January and to April, watch out for interview requests. As I mentioned, have fun doing them as well. And April 1st is the results day. Yes, the results will come out. You will see your hard work, pay off, and it'll be a good day. May 1st, within 1 month, you need to ensure which college you want to attend, which really suits you, and reply to them saying that, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, I would like to attend your college. This is a short list of online resources that my friends and I gathered. Super Tutor has blog and a YouTube channel. College Essay Guy offers free and paid college counseling. He also has a blog and YouTube channel. College Wine is something I would like to emphasize on because it has a essay feedback service. So basically, you can ask College Wine students, College Wine people to check your essays, or you can even ask complete strangers to check your essays. So that's also there. And John Hopkins has a website for essays that worked at John Hopkins. So that's pretty great. So check out all these websites as well. Thank you. That'll be from our side, and we'll open the platform for Q&A. Seema, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much, Tushar. I think you all have given such a comprehensive, details about the US application process, right from, UNBU sharing, the profile building and current sharing, the college list, writing essays, and then sticking to the deadlines. Amazing. So a lot of details for our audience today. Let's take some questions. So the first question which I would like to take is, are there any advantages for submitting an application where the major is specified versus an open application? So did any of you, I remember that Khushi went for a different major and then decided on a different major. So Khushi, would you like to answer this question? Because since you, were a bit indecisive about the major you wanted to apply.
Sure. So the thing about US is that it's very flexible in terms of the course that you have to pursue. Unlike the UK and Singapore, the first year is mostly common, so you still have some time in your hand to figure out what you want to do by exploring different courses and doing some research. So, as ma'am mentioned, I did plan on doing something else and I ended up changing my mind later, but it was no issue because after I committed to Georgia Tech, they gave me the opportunity to choose any major that I wanted without any restrictions. So, even if you apply with, let's say, public policy, but then figure out that you'd rather do mechanical engineering, as long as the core requirements are fulfilled, they'll allow you to change. Um, Switching your major when you have started university can be a bit more difficult. So again, we would recommend that you decide on a major as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Thanks, Khushi. Yes. Anyone else would like to, Tushar, would you like to say anything on this?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. I don't have any statistics on this, but sir or ma'am, when we talk about an open application, I think you mean undeclared. I have seen my friends who came in undeclared and the friends who came in declared. The undeclared people have a lot more extracurriculars and a stronger application in that sense. So overall, I would say that undeclared may be slightly harder to get in with compared to declared. I don't have any statistics for this again, so that's my experience. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes. And Karan, yes, Karan.
Just I'd like to highlight from UC San Diego as well. I actually got in undeclared. I didn't get it for computer science, which is what I applied for. But what that gave me was the opportunity to discover a major that I actually ended up liking more. So US colleges will give you a lot of information about a variety of options, which is a huge thing. So uh, I wouldn't say that I would have gone for an undeclared or an open application, as you put it, but that's definitely an option. And sometimes it may work in your favor, sometimes it may not. Again, US colleges can be very dicey in that sense.
Thanks, Karan. So yes, US universities are quite flexible. You can definitely go with an undeclared major if you have not if you are undecided, and even if you go with a major, there is a flexibility to change the major later. So over to the next question. What is the application process for scholarships, and would be a good GPA or a percentage for having a good shot at getting one? So here I would like to pitch in that scholarships in US is really tough. There could be scholarships which are say merit based. Which could be need based. So generally for need based students applying from Singapore and studying in international schools, generally for the need based scholarships they would not qualify. For merit based scholarships, it's generally automatic and based on your scores, your SATs, extracurriculars. Universities may give you some kind of scholarship based, that would be merit scholarships. There are some universities which are need blind, like the US, like the Ivy Leagues. Generally, they are need blind about scholarships, so they do not actually look at whether you need the scholarship or not. But based on your application, they would give you scholarship if you are applying for scholarship. But let me tell you, if you are applying with scholarship, your chances reduce because there is high competition. They have limited number of international scholarships to give, and so it could be really tough. Anyone else would like to say anything on scholarships? Karan, would you?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the general trend for US colleges is that it's usually the private universities offering it. As ma'am said, the Ivy Leagues will have a higher budget allocated to giving scholarships to international students. Public universities like UCs have a very low chance for international students specifically to get scholarships. So that may be something to keep in mind. What I do suggest is that there are a lot of external scholarship agencies. You can reach out to me via email and I can send you some links for it. But they sometimes do offer not very significant, but it is something, but they may offer some scholarships.
Anyone else would like to say anything on scholarships? Okay, so let's move on to next. How did you manage your time on both weekdays and weekends? So yes, this is a very important question, because college applications could be really overwhelming, and you would have a lot of things together, like college application deadlines, your semesters coming up, then your lot of submissions specifically for IB students, lot of IAs, and deadlines also come during that time. So I would like to really I would like you to share about how did you manage time. So would Tushar or Khushi, any of you would like to pitch in here?
I think the simplest way to manage your time is to start early. The plan that Tushar mentioned was very, very useful, because when you start early, you're more likely to be on track, you're more likely to present yourself in the best way, and you're more likely to take less stress. So starting early is the most amazing thing you can do to yourself. Another thing is planning. And by planning, I just don't mean making your list, things like that, but planning your college application process along with your IB requirements. So do consider and keep in mind all the IB year ones that you will have semesters coming up in IB year 2. You will have IA deadlines, TOK, presentations, things like that. So the sooner you get done with your college applications, the more you can focus on both these things, both the college applications and IB. So I think the best advice I can give is starting early and planning each and every component of your application, from your academics, standardized testing, and your essays. Tushar, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I think the best way to manage your time is to not think about or stress about the fact that you have so much work. Just keep going step by step forward. Make a plan, as Khushi said, and as has been listed. So whenever you have holidays, try to make a plan and try to explore and keep moving forward step by step. And ensure what is on priority at that point. So if you have your semesters coming up, you probably want to study for your semesters. Whereas if you have an application coming up, you want to focus on the application. Big thing is productivity. In IB, do not waste time. Like, do not waste time. This is not junior, like this is not primary school anymore. So whatever you're doing, make sure it's finishing. So always aim at completing tasks instead of leaving them halfway. That's a very big thing. Make sure you complete whatever task you start.
Thanks, Tushar. And it's not for IB only, even the CBSE students, for them also, managing their time around different activities is very, very important. The next question I would like to ask Anbu, because since you have applied for a physics major, what would you, since you have researched physics universities which offer physics major, what are the best universities for major in physics and maths? So would you like to kind of share some of your research, what you did on the major physics?
Okay, sure. Um, Obviously, UCLA is really good. They're also really flexible. Another one is University of Maryland. They're a little easier to get into, I think, but they're also a really good place to go into. Those were two of my primary places I wanted to go. Um, Outside of the US, University of Toronto is also pretty good for physics
Thanks, Anbu.
and math. They're all good for math as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Now coming to, there's a question on which US universities do you recommend for mechanical engineering? I think for engineering, you can look at, when you are searching universities, of course, the primary search you can do on various websites which show the popular universities through ranking. That could be one way. Just shortlist some universities, go into their website and look at the program. So whether, I would not suggest you to just go on the rankings, but go on the university websites, look at their acceptance percentage, and then also look at their different activities, what they are, offering, and look at the program itself. That is very, very important. So I think mechanical engineering for any university which is good at engineering, like Georgia Tech or UCLA, or they are all good for engineering programs. So look for universities which are more popular for engineering and technology courses. According to you, when should we be done with our IAs and EE? Any of you would like to answer this?
Yeah, sure.
Karan? Yes.
So IB timelines and college timelines will often intersect. The only thing I will say is as early as possible. Like IAs and EEs, ideally you should start before the summer break between 11th grade and 12th grade, and try to do as much as possible during that break. You will probably have your lab times for the IAs after the summer break. So to give you just a date, try to be done by October. But that honestly, for most of us, it doesn't work out. We probably take it all the way to January, February. That's okay. Sometimes it can't be helped. But then it just becomes a question of balancing your time between college applications and the IIs and EEs.
Thank you. There is a question on, are US citizens who apply from Singapore considered international applicants? And if not, do they enjoy any significant benefits in the application process? Any of you are US citizen? I think Anbu, are you?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
Okay. So let me tell you, for the state universities, like the public universities, they would consider only students who are from that particular state as the in-state applications, and other students they would consider as the international applicant. But when it comes to private universities, they would definitely, have advantage. There would be advantage to US citizens who are applying from abroad. So that's what I think, but I am not too sure about this. Let me come back to you. Then the next is Khushi. I saw you listed the IO Gold as your achievement. Is that the International Economics Olympiad? And if so, how did you sign it up? Khushi, would you like to answer this?
Sure. So it's actually the International English Olympiad. There are different international and national Olympiads from almost every subject. Most have online applications. Some of them, it's through your school. So some of them that I know of are Science Olympiad, Network Olympiad, then IPHO, which is the Physics Olympiad, IBO, which is the Biology Olympiad. Then I think Singapore has a National Physics Olympiad, that's Singapore Physics Olympiad Junior, something like that. So you can definitely ask your subject teachers. They would know if the school registers for them. And some of them, as I mentioned, have online applications. So this is something you'll have to research into, depending on which subject that you want to go in.
Thank you, Khushi. So there is a question on what each of you think got admission for you in those universities. Was it academics, extracurricular, or both? What are your inputs? So here I would like to say that US universities have holistic applications, and it's not just academics, it's basically academic, non-academic achievements, also the standardized testing, recommendation letters. So there are different areas here. Would anyone anyone would like to answer this? Karan, what do you think about this question? Yeah.
So for US universities, how I consider it to be, I see it as a 40-30-30. 40% is your academics, 30% is your extracurriculars, your co-curriculars, honors, awards, stuff like that. And 30% would be your essays. You can have really good academics, but if you don't write good essays, you won't get in. It works out like that. So what I'd say is it's a very balanced approach. It's not like UK where they emphasize completely on academics. So you really need to have a complete profile. To give a basic understanding of how I would approach this is the good academic, most of these really good academic US universities will have students who are already at the top of their class, who are doing really well. So how you differentiate yourself is through these essays and through your extracurriculars. So a basic formula would be to learn an instrument or a dance, do a sport, and have something that really separates you. For me and a lot of my friends, it was MUNs. Tushar was big into entrepreneurship. Anbu was into doing animation and writing. Khushi was into a lot of Olympiads. So you kind of have a diverse kind of thing where you can see yourself going into.
Thanks, Karan. I think that was very well answered. Given the pandemic situation, does having a SAT score on your application give you an edge over applicants who don't? So here, see, most of the universities have made the SAT scores optional, but students who are sending the SAT score and which are like scores which are strong, I would consider like above 1480, and if it's like ACT score which is above like 33, 34, I think those students definitely would have an advantage over others. Did any of you not submit scores at all? Karan, did you submit the scores?
Yeah, I did. I did to all my
I
universities.
think Tushar also sent the scores. Khushi, Anbu, did you like not send the scores to any of the unis?
Actually, this time I think UCLA just didn't consider SAT scores
Yeah.
at all. Like even if you submit them, they just didn't consider it as a part of the process at all. So in that case, there was no advantage at all.
Yeah, but ma'am's completely right. The SAT
Yeah.
this year, it was kind of something that kind of differentiates you from the rest of the crowd. So just the fact that you've written it, and if you have gotten a good score, obviously, that makes it a kind of differentiating factor. So it's definitely a good idea to submit your SAT scores.
Could I add in a point as well? Okay, so for the SAT, if you're not submitting right, you really want to think from the admission officer's point of view. The admission officer knows where you're from. If you're in Singapore, the admission officer knows that exams happen in Singapore. Singapore's been having a fairly fine, is tackling COVID fairly well. And therefore, the reason you probably didn't submit the SAT scores is because you got a low grade. Compared to states and countries where the COVID is rampant and SAT is not being administered, there it is easier to understand that yes, student probably didn't take the SAT because of COVID. If this is a situation, if you are in a situation where COVID caused prevented you from writing the SAT, you can always go to the additional information essay. Additional information essay is open. You can write about anything and talk about how COVID stopped you from writing that essay, or how any other hurdle stopped you from writing the SAT. Sorry, SAT. Yeah.
Thanks, Tushar. Now moving on to, we'll just take two more questions, and I think we need to end the webinar. We are running out of time. The question is, are IB students given priority over CBSE students when applying for foreign universities? So here for the US universities, I think not at all. The both qualification, CBSE and IB, are equally considered. Our CBSE students have also got in US universities. One of them has got in Georgia Tech as well. So it's just that CBSE results are not yet out, and they are not yet decided on where they would be going. That's why we couldn't invite them. But otherwise, CBSE students have also gotten in the US universities. So it's all equal. Some of the UK universities have like specified that they would prefer like for certain courses like medicine, they have like not recognized CBSE as a qualification, and that's few universities only, but otherwise it's all equal. So we'll take this last question. After a major in physics, what should your be the next degree? So that I think is for Anbu. Anbu, would you like to answer this?
Yeah. So if you're sure about physics being the thing you want to do, after your undergrad major, you should probably start looking into graduate school, which is essentially kind of a very similar process. You'll have to take tests there. I think it's the GRE, and then you'll have to apply with whatever you've done during your undergrad time for graduate school. There you can do either a master's or you can go for doctor's degree, I think, a PhD. And the thing about US is that you can directly go for a PhD. I think it's slightly longer than, it's slightly shorter than going for a master's and then a PhD. So those are your options, but you definitely want to be looking at graduate school. But that's a long way from now, though.
Thank you so much, Anbu. I'm happy to share that the IB coordinator, Ms. Deepa, has also joined the webinar. Ms. Deepa, would you like to address our students, our alumni?
Yeah. Good evening to one and all present here. Let me first congratulate Khushi, Karan, Anbu, and Tushar. Heartfelt congratulations to you for becoming world toppers. It was quite a trying time and so much of uncertainty was around us, but still you achieved the top rank. So proud of you all. Regarding the presentation today, there is only one word, wow. It was so well planned, it was crystal clear, and it was completely coordinated. Amazing, and very proud of your confidence and maturity with which you presented the entire session.
Thank you, Ms. Deepa, and thank you so much for joining in. That was really, really encouraging for all of our alumni. So that was a great session. I sincerely hope that our audience, our students, those who attended, have learned a lot from the interactions and have taken great takeaways from today's session, which will help you in your own university applications in future. I wish to thank the alumni for taking the time to speak to the juniors through this webinar and help our younger students understand the process. Their talk was insightful for many, I'm sure. I wish you all the very best and even more success in the future. I am so proud of all four of you. And thank you to all of you who have attended the session. We will have many more informative sessions for you in the coming months. We will keep you informed of them in due time. So goodbye for now. Stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you so much.